Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into what's being called India's biggest IPO ever. We're talking about the public offering for Reliance Jio. So let's jump right in and see what we know so far.
All right, so let's get right to it. Is all this hype for real? I mean, is this really going to be India's biggest IPO? Well, all the reports are definitely pointing in that direction. This could be a massive landmark event for the Indian stock market, and you can bet the preparations are in full swing.
So check out this number, $180 billion. That's the high-end valuation coming from Jefferies, and it really gives you a sense of the insane scale we're dealing with for Jio Platforms. Now, to be fair, other banks like JP Morgan are a little more conservative, pegging it closer to $136 billion. But let's be real, even the low end of that range is just staggering.
Okay, so how is this whole thing actually structured? And maybe more importantly, who's going to make money from it? This is where things get really interesting because, well, it's not your typical IPO.
Right, so here's the key thing to understand. This is what's called an offer for sale, or OFS. And what that means is that Jio, the company, isn't actually raising new money for its own business. Nope. Instead, this IPO is all about giving its early global backers, the ones who poured in cash back in 2020, a chance to cash out and get a nice return on their investment by selling off some of their shares. And we're talking about a pretty significant chunk of shares here. It's about 2.8% of the whole company. This piece of the pie is being sold off by 14 of Jio's biggest global investors. We're talking some of the heaviest hitters in tech and finance. And it looks like they're ready to cash out at least a portion of their holdings. So let's take a closer look at who's actually selling and, just as importantly, who isn't. You can see tech giants like Meta and Google are trimming their stakes a little bit, but, and this is key, none of them are running for the exits. They're taking some profits off the table for sure, but they're still keeping plenty of skin in the game. And maybe the biggest tell, the parent company, Reliance Industries, isn't selling a single share. They're holding their massive 67% stake steady.
And this really frames the whole narrative perfectly. This quote from RIL Chairman Mukesh Ambani from last year, it just brilliantly illustrates the company's public position. They're not framing this as early investors cashing out. Instead, it's being pitched as this amazing, prime opportunity for everyone else, all the new retail and institutional investors, to finally get a piece of the action. All right, let's talk about the money, because that's what everyone really wants to know. How much is Jio really worth? This is probably the biggest point of debate among all the analysts right now. I mean, it's a classic problem, right? How do you put a price tag on a company that completely changed the game for an entire industry?
And you can see that disagreement right here in black and white. You've got JP Morgan saying $136 billion, and then Jefferies on the other end at a whopping $180 billion. This huge gap really gets to the heart of the debate about Jio. Are you just valuing a telecom company, or are you valuing a massive digital ecosystem with huge growth potential in everything from 5G to streaming to e-commerce? And that is the multi-billion-dollar question every investor is trying to answer. So while all the investors are trying to figure out that big valuation puzzle, all eyes are now turning to the timeline. With all this buzz, the big question is, when is this mega listing actually gonna happen? Well, this whole journey really kicked off last year with the official announcement at the shareholder meeting. Now we're hitting a really critical point, the regulatory filing. That's the DRHP, which is basically the super detailed prospectus for investors. And from there, the target is a stock market debut sometime in the next few months, in the first half of 2026. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Why should you care about this beyond just the huge dollar signs? What does a massive IPO like this really mean for the Indian market and for the entire digital economy? This IPO is dropping into what you might call a very choppy market. We've seen some pretty sharp sell-offs recently. Even the parent company, RIL, saw its shares take a hit after the government brought back a windfall tax. On top of that, you've got big players like Goldman Sachs actually downgrading Indian stocks. So yeah, this Jio IPO is going to be a massive test of investor appetite. But on the flip side, it also has the power to completely redefine the value of the entire digital and telecom space in India. It could be a re-rating trigger for the whole sector. And that really leaves us with one final big question to chew on. When you think about the sheer scale of this thing, the shaky market it's launching into, and Jio's massive role in the country's tech scene, you realize the success of this IPO is about way more than just raising capital. This could literally set the tone for the future of India's entire digital economy for years and years to come. Thanks so much for watching this explainer. I'm really curious. What do you think about the Jio IPO? Let us know down in the comments. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the topics that are shaping our world.